And I think you need to see it this way that, we are used to when we make a business decision or we lend out money to corporates, look at the financials. We've done that for decades. We're good at that in the financial community. But I think what is emerging as a theme is that ESG is going to be much more important deciding the future profitability, the future performance of the companies. If you invest in a company that's doing financially well today, but you know that within the next 5 years, they will get carbon taxes. That's going to impede their cash flow. Maybe it's a company that has a undesirable social engagement with labor force in their supply chain. That's going to hit their reputation eventually. And why? That is because the combination of climate, that's the E, the combination of the social part of it, that's the S, and governance, is actually a strong indicator for the future viability of the company and the performance of the company.
Tonny, Lars, thank you so much for taking time this morning to come and chat to us.
Thank you for inviting us.
Before we start, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do? Tonny, let's start with you.
I can do that. My name is Tonny Andersen. I'm part of the executive board in Nykredit, which is a large Danish financial institution. I've been working in the banking sector for, I think, a couple of decades or so, in various positions, in the finance position, in the business unit. So a quite broad experience also on technology and innovation.
All right, that's great. Thank you. Lars, tell us a little bit about you.
I'm Deputy CEO at BEC Financial Technologies, Head of Business Transformation and Customers. BEC is a community banking setup with 18 different membership banks in Denmark, covering almost 1/3 of the Danish banking market.
Okay, so Nykredit and BEC. And we're talking today about sustainability. So before we start, why don't you give us a little bit of context of what's been happening in the financial industry with regards to sustainability?
Well, I think we all experienced this summer that the change to climate is having an impact all over the world. And in my view, climate change and sustainability is going to be the biggest change for the financial industry during the next 5 to 10 years. And why? You have a change in legislation, you have a change in customer demand, you have change in employee demand, you have a risk emerging that we haven't seen before. And all of that is coming together at the same time, which is going to make the financial industry, I think, both giving them an opportunity, but also a need for change.
Right. Okay. Lars, do you experience the same from the technology side?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, our raison d'etre is basically supporting the business strategies in the different banks. So I think what Tonny is also saying, I think ESG is extremely high on the business agenda. So our job is actually to support that agenda with IT and IT solutions.
Okay, we hear a lot about the ESG agenda, but I don't know if all of us are fully aware of what that actually means. Could you give us a little bit of insight of what the ESG agenda comprises?
I think you could say it's a baseline or measurement that you can use when you, in this case, are making investments. You can also do it if you want to take out a loan, but in this case, we have been focusing on investments. So you can actually make a conscious choice saying, how green would I like to be when I invest in something? That could be stocks or funds or whatever. So we are actually displaying your ESG score on papers, your whole portfolio, and then you can actually compare it to your ESG profile. So if you really want to make a difference for the climate, you would go for a green ESG score in your investment choice, right?
Okay. But if I understand this correctly, the ESG agenda covers more than just sustainability. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah.
And I think you need to see it this way that, we are used to when we make a business decision or we lend out money to corporates, look at the financials. We've done that for decades. We're good at that in the financial community. But I think what is emerging as a theme is that ESG is going to be much more important deciding the future profitability, the future performance of the companies. And why? That is because the combination of climate, that's the E, the combination of the social part of it, that's the S, and governance, is actually a strong indicator for the future viability of the company and the performance of the company.
But if I'm getting this right, what you're saying is that ESG is not just about saving the planet. There is also a direct correlation with companies' profitability and customers' profitability in their investment portfolios.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So if you look at the different investment portfolios, one with a higher ESG tilt than others who doesn't have the same ESG tilt, the performance of ESG is performing better over a longer time. And it's natural because companies that are in good control of the ESG is actually looking ahead of the time and incorporating that into their own business decision, their own strategy decisions.
Right.
And I think that's a good indicator that the company's management is actually looking in the future, not just at the financials, last quarter or so. And I think that's a strong indicator that you actually take care of your company and the stakeholders around you.
Okay, now I understand there's a partnership that's been formed between Nykredit and BEC. What was the foundation of that partnership?
Well, I think it's important to say that the basis of the partnership is actually Nykredit working on behalf of the BEC community. So Nykredit is actually working on behalf of 18 banks in Denmark. So we have a very close collaboration around actually developing a solution for the market together, but having actually the opportunity to take it out to a number of other banks in Denmark. And that's the whole community thought about BEC.
Right.
That we are working together, making solutions together.
Now, Lars, can you tell me from a technology perspective, what is it that BEC is enabling banking customers to do now that they weren't able to do before?
We are enabling is actually displaying the ESG score, as I said, in the mobile bank or in the net bank, on individual tables and on portfolio level. And we are doing that using a recognized, you could say, ESG rating. So working together with MSCI.
Yeah. And I also think that if you look at where's the customer traffic, where's the customer interface, it is on the mobile bank. Our customers go into the mobile bank all the time, every day. Look, what's in my account? I want to transfer money. So making a conscious decision to display the ESG where the customers are, not a different new app, but in the mobile bank, I think is something that will generate traffic and awareness to the customers. I think that was a strategic choice we made in the design also.
And you mentioned MSCI. This is just one of the various indexes that are available in the market with regards to ESG. Why did you choose to go with MSCI?
I think we have a strong collaboration with MSCI in other areas. So we actually know them as a trust provider. We know that they're also the biggest provider in the market on ESG scores. And they have a pretty robust, you could say, engine that is running. And we know that we can integrate it into our engine as well. So I think at least if you look at our assessment, they're the very best provider in the market, covering most companies all over the world.
Well, that's great. And what is it that Nykredit's clients think about having access to that data now directly from their mobile app?
And the problem before was, where do you get that data? Do you search the entire web? And how do you actually make it relevant for your portfolio as an individual investor? So now, as Lars is saying, each customers can now see on their specific portfolio, what is my ESG score? And thereby having an informed discussion about, does that fit with my own strategy, my own appetite on ESG, in the dialogue between the advisor and the customer, or the customer by themselves, they don't want to look into that.
And Lars, what technological capabilities will BEC continue to deploy in order to support customers in this transition towards more sustainable practices?
I think it's also go a little bit beyond the sustainable practice. I think what we have learned from the partnership with Nykredit, but also the partnership from MSCI, is how to actually integrate solutions from third parties into our own solutions. So I think we will see more of that at, both partnerships with more mature fintech companies, but definitely also startups. So actually integrating more third-party solutions into our own technology.
Tonny, what was the event that triggered you to think, okay, we need to do something about this, and therefore we need to go and seek out a partner like BEC in order to serve the needs of our customers?
So I'm a firm believer that you always need to start with the customer. What is their pain point? And from specific customer insight, we could see we were clearly lagging on investment functionalities on our mobile bank. And we could see that increasingly became a distractor for our customers' satisfaction. So we basically used that as an input to the team saying, take the 2 best performers in the Nordics on that area specifically. And in my view, that is Danske Bank and Nordic. And they told the team, copycat whatever they have and make that the blueprint for how we are moving forward for our functionality. Don't think, integrate that functionality into the blueprint so we don't do bottom-up sort of innovation, but actually use that as the hypothesis for working. And I think that gave clarity to the team, and it also gave a benchmark as to where we want to go.
Right, and then presumably that was the same that BEC experienced in terms of demand for technological innovation.
Yeah, and I think it's important to stress that I think our strategy was a little bit twofold. So I think taking all the basic functionality in the investment universe on par with the market, and then building ESG on the top. Yeah, because we are the only one in the market actually having the ESG score.
That's a good point.
Right. Well, Tonny, Lars, it's been a real pleasure having you both here today. Thank you so much for taking the time to coming and chatting with us. And of course, we are very excited of hearing your presentation at Nordic Fintech Week at the end of September.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.